This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public discussion in Saanen, 1975.
What shall we talk about together this morning?
What happens to thought when it realizes that it can't grasp the whole? What happens to thought when it realizes that it cannot grasp the whole?
What happens to thought when it cannot comprehend or grasp or understand the whole?
I'd like to go into the act or passion of learning. The act or passion of learning.
The act or the passion or the urge to learn.
Vous parlez de la mort sans jamais intégrer le problème des manifestations, des apparitions et autres. Comment l'intégrer dans le problème?
You have never talked about apparitions, ghosts, and all that business after death.
What happens in your own mind at a time when you no longer find yourself in relationship with other people? You're able to
What happens, j'ai compris, what happens to your own mind when you are not talking, when you are not with people, when you are not reading? What is the state of your mind? Come on. Problem of violence.
What is boredom?
What is boredom? Perhaps you are bored here.
What is mind in its relationship to thought? Yesterday,
What is the relationship of the mind to thought?
yesterday you spoke of desire, and you put the beautiful garden and the beautiful car. To me, that is not a thing that I would desire. I'd like you to tell us about the responsibility we have, which are one of the greatest worries, towards our children, towards the elderly people, towards the sick. That is what worries me.
What worries the questioner is our relationship to children, our responsibility to children, to older people, and so on.
Would you talk over meditation and perception and how perception changes the mind and therefore thought?
Could we talk over meditation in relation to a total perception which transforms or changes the structure or the cells in the brain?
What is sensitivity in the change of mind and what is right education?
What is it to be sensitive and what is right education? Now just a minute. Which shall we take of these? What is the state of your own mind when you are not talking, reading, being with people? Then, what is right education? And what is our responsibility to our children, to the older people, to the people about us? What is could you talk over meditation and the total perception of something whole, you said, transforms the very cells of the brain. The act of learning. Now, what shall we take of these which will cover all the questions that have been raised? What's that? The gentleman says, your state of mind. Perhaps we can come to that, if you are still interested at the end of it, by talking over together the problem of responsibility, not only with regard to our children, but to society, to the politician, to this world that is in chaos. And perhaps if we could go into this question of meditation, we might cover the whole, all the questions that have been asked. So could we take, I'm asking you, I'm not saying you should, responsibility. What is our responsibility to our children, to our neighbor, to all the things that are happening in the world, dictatorship, violence, suppressing free speech, all that? What is our responsibility? And what is the action of that responsibility? And could we learn what that action is? That includes, I think, most of the questions that have been asked, and perhaps we can also go into the question of meditation after, or we'll come up on it. Do we feel responsible? What's happening in India? The suppression of... You know what's happening there? You know what's happening in Russia? If you have read Solzhenitsyn and Sakharov and the others, and talked to some people, diplomats, or friends who have been there, and in China and in America and in Europe, and the starving people throughout the world, including Africa and India, what is one's responsibility? What should one do? This is a dialogue. What should one do? Do you feel strong enough or passionate enough that things can't go on as they are? Or do you say, that's mine, not my responsibility? What happens in Russia, in India, or in Africa, and so on. Do you feel responsible? That is, the word responsibility means to respond adequately to the challenge that's going on around us. The word responsibility means that, to respond inadequately or adequately or fully. Does one feel responsible? Answer. And if you do feel responsible, at what level? Casual responsibility, casual response, convenient response, responding according to your political theories or according to your convictions, beliefs and so on. How do you respond?
Is feeling responsible in any way associated with feeling culpable?
Is responsibility involve guilt? Culpable? You understand all these questions are involved in this. What is one to do? I feel terribly responsible. Suppose one does. I do personally feel terribly responsible. That something must be done to stem the tide of tyranny and all the political chicanery, the secretiveness of politicians and their conclusions and their documents behind the door. All that's happening. And looking at it as a human being, I feel utterly responsible. Do you? Or do you say that's not my business? I can't do anything about it. What can I do to things that are happening in India or in Russia, where there is no freedom of speech, the new class, people are treated like lumps of flesh, and that's happening also slowly in India and in Africa. How do you feel responsible? And what can you do about it? So face it, let's talk about it. This is...
We conventionally understand or measure action in terms of a yardstick of so and so much activity. What do you mean by action?
I'm coming to that, sir.
Or doing?
Does one feel responsible to our children? Let's begin with that. I don't know why you beget children, but do you feel responsible? That they have right kind of environment, right kind of education. We'll discuss what right kind of education. Right kind of parents, and not indifferent parents. Parents who are occupied with their own problems, with their own ambitions, with their own greeds, with their own status. The maladjustment between wife and their husband. And therefore, feel very little responsible to the children. Because one is occupied with oneself, the parents. And then talk about responsibility to children. You understand what I mean? And if you do not feel responsible, why not? When the house is burning, which it is, we sit back and meditate, take drugs, form little communes, and go to Japan or India to find little gurus. What do you do?
When I see that all this state of affairs in the world comes about through division into nationalities, into families, and into all that.
So what shall I do, sir? face the problem. Who is responsible for creating this? You understand?
One must look into one's relationship to all this disorder.
We're going into that, so go slowly.
Je pense qu'il est très difficile d'assumer ses responsabilités dans le monde parce qu'on est très pris par ses propres problèmes, tous ces conflits. Et alors, même la souffrance du monde échappe quand on est pris dans tout ça.
It is very difficult to be totally responsible for the whole because one is so occupied with one's own problems, with one's own livelihood, with one's own passions, appetites, and all that. Therefore, how can you talk about being responsible for the whole? So if you could approach this problem, who is responsible for making this mess in the world? The Catholic mess, the Hindu, you understand the mess, the violence, the brutality. Who is responsible? The politicians? The priests? You are. Don't be casual about it. Don't be hesitant. Either you are or you are not. Don't let's pretend and say, well, I'm not responsible. Really, somebody else is responsible. Who is responsible?
What does it take for me to be responsible when I have no power?
Wait, I did not. Wait, how do you know you have no power? You haven't even looked at it, so please look at it first before you answer it. If you attribute this chaos in the world and violence and all the rest of it to environment, to a society, to the priests, to the politicians, then you have to say, who brought this politician into being? The priest into being? We haven't we? Through our fear. We have created the church, the temples, the mosques. Right? No? Come on, so go move. And we have elected these politicians, either in this country or in so-called democratic countries, which is really not democracy at all, but that doesn't matter. We certainly have not created the communists. They have usurped power in the name of the people and all the rest of it. So, we are responsible, aren't we? Oh, face it, sir, don't be shy about it. We are Englishmen or Frenchmen or Italians or Russians or... We have demanded that we be nationalistic, divisive. No? Sir, if you feel that, if you feel that you are utterly responsible for everything that's going on in the world, not to get depressed by it, but feel utterly responsible.
Why does it take to be responsible when you have no money?
Does responsibility depend on money?
No, but money dictates.
Wait, sir. I know that money dictates, power dictates, sex dictates. But first, we are responsible for this. Not the moneyed people or the poor people, we, you and I.
But it was already a mess when I was born.
It was already existent, this confusion, this misery, this suffering, the chaos, violence, before I was born. Obviously. Come on? You don't know what to do. I thought we're going to learn what to do. So if you feel utterly, totally, wholly responsible for this, because in oneself, one is violent. In oneself, one is ambitious. And therefore, we have created this.
I feel more part of the mess than responsible for the mess.
What's that?
I feel more part of the mess than responsible for the mess.
All right, you feel part of the mess. But that part has created this. You are in it. We are all in it. And what shall we do? Just be carried along? So we have to find out, we have to learn. Please, don't be definite, don't come to any conclusion. Come on. Huh? I see. You don't really feel it. You intellectually agree we are responsible, but we don't feel the thing.
What happens when one feels this responsibility and at the same time feels as strongly that this mess is the nature of the world, is the nature of existence, and that no matter...
You say this is the nature of existence, you accept it. Therefore, I don't accept that is the nature of this world. That means I am doomed forever. This horsefly is rather tiresome. Now let's go slowly. Let's learn about it. Don't jump from state to state to state. Let's learn about it. What am I to do? I feel totally responsible as a human being who is the world and the world is him. That is the basic thing first. If you don't accept it, let's talk it over together. That you are the world and the world is you. You have been brought up in a particular culture, Western culture including all the sociological, economic, ethical, moral, religious structure. You have been brought up in that. But in essence, you are like everybody else. Greedy, envious, arrogant, violent, all that. Right through the world, this is what's going on.
Once again, I see that is so intellectually, but I don't feel that.
He says, intellectually he sees that, but I don't feel it. I wonder if you see it intellectually at all. Why do you divide the intellect and the feeling? What you mean by the intellect is hearing the words and the understanding of the words. And then you say, I understand it intellectually. Do you understand intellectually when somebody beats you? When you are hungry? When your house is burning? When your wife or girl runs away from you? Do you intellectually say yes? Or do you feel it? This is a false division. The intellectual comprehension and having no feeling.
But there is fear to see it because you want to be hurt. You don't want to be hurt. There is fear.
We've been through that, sir. I am talking about what shall I do or you do if you feel utterly responsible. I am personally totally against killing human beings and animals. To me, to kill something or to hurt somebody is something totally incorrect. And if I have money, a bank account, thank God I haven't got it. If I have money, a bank account, whatever I do goes towards maintaining war, right? By paying taxes. Face all this, sir. So I know through tax, war, the things of war, the materials for war, for killing, is maintained. So what shall I do? Not pay tax and go to prison? Come on.
Not to get attached to power.
No, sir. This is just ideas, theories. I'm talking of realities. What's going on? What shall I do? You are in that position.
Sir, I admit that mankind is responsible for what is happening on the world. Mankind, and I am part of mankind. I have been a long time a victim of this situation. Now I get stronger, and I have the chance to get out of it. So it is my duty to do something to...
I'm telling you, madam, this is what we are doing. I'm going into it.
Yes.
What shall I do? Not pay tax and end up in prison? Which is of greater importance? End up in prison or grasp the whole problem and attack it at a deeper level. You understand my question? Oh, for God's sake. Vous avez compris, n'est-ce pas? I buy stamps. And buying stamps is also a form of sustaining the military spirit in the world. So shall I not buy stamps? Not write letters? Or I can go on filtering my energy about details like that. Not buy stamps, not pay tax, no telegrams. You follow? Gradually close myself in. Don't use aeroplanes, trains. Everything is maintaining war. So what shall I do? Wouldn't it be wiser, saner, to approach this problem, not don't buy stamps, this or that, but approach the problem at a deeper level? No? What is the deeper level? I see, as long as I'm a Hindu, with all the superstitions, with my beliefs, I maintain division, right? As long as I am a Christian, I maintain that division. No? You're rather... As long as I am nationalistic, I maintain that division. So, I feel utterly responsible at the greatest depth not to be any of these things. And from that, I act totally differently. So my responsibility is not to belong to any of this. I have an Indian passport. That's only merely for convenience. And when I'm in India, they say, "You're really Indian. You've got the real Indian mind, ancient Indian mind. Therefore, you belong to us." I say, "Nonsense, skip it." So, do you attack this problem superficially or deeply? If you approach this problem deeply, then it's your responsibility not to be any of these things. Neither communist, socialist, you follow? None of these things. They're just labels, which means you see the false and therefore see what is real and act.
Je me sens très responsable de ce qui se passe dans le monde. Simplement, il me semble que tant qu'on n'est pas, on n'a pas un esprit clair, tant qu'on se sent soi-même confus, on ne peut pas aborder ces problèmes de façon objective.
Madame, j'explique. I just explained what you're... I just explained in English what your question, and I've answered it. You say, I am responsible if you do. And if you are responsible, then at what level and depth are you responsible? If that responsibility is that you cannot belong to anything which is divisive and therefore lacks cooperation, then you act from that. Then you have your education. How do you educate your children who will not have this mentality, this tradition of being a communist, Catholic, Protestant, you follow? The whole works. How will you educate him? Knowing that when he goes with other boys and girls, he's going to be conditioned. Right? You follow all this? You may not want him to be conditioned. Conditioning being the tradition of being an Englishman, Frenchman, and Catholic, Protestant, Hindu, Buddhist, Communist, and so on. But when he goes to school, the other boys and the teachers are going to condition him. So what will you do? It's your responsibility. Huh? Huh?
Not send him to school.
Not send him to school. Have you time to educate him at home? Also, don't play around with words. So what will you do? So if you feel responsible, you want to find a school where you're going to see that both the teacher and the student are helping themselves to be unconditioned. For that you are responsible. Right? So,
But if they're in a school with people who are totally unconditioned, how can they learn to cope with the conditioning of others when they go out of the world and meet it?
how can they face the world when they go out of that school when they are not conditioned? Conditioning means unintelligence. Right? When you are conditioned, you are unintelligent. And when you are unconditioned, if that is possible, then you are intelligent. And that intelligence will meet when he goes out in the world. For God's sake, these are all simple things.
When you do this in a school with this condition itself,
Therefore, find out. Find out if the teacher and the school and the student and the parents all together want, desire, feel responsible that these children should be brought up without any conditioning. As the teachers are conditioned, discuss with the children. I am conditioned, oh boy, you are conditioned. Let us investigate it, go into it, make it disappear. That's part of education, not just memorizing facts.
but is it unusual to go as a teacher to a school with itself conditioned?
Mon cher, I've explained to you, sir. I have a child.
I talk about myself as a teacher.
Sir, as yourself as a teacher, you are conditioned. Yeah? Do you acknowledge that you are conditioned?
No, I don't want to allow that.
It's not a question of being allowing yourself. You are conditioned. And the child comes to you, the student, who is already conditioned by the parents, by the society. So there you are. The student and the teacher in a school are conditioned. And it is the responsibility of the teacher and the school to see that these children are unconditioned. It is their responsibility. I send my child to you because you say I'm going to learn and help him to uncondition himself. Therefore, it's your responsibility. So the teacher talks it over with the student. Say, look, I am conditioned and you are conditioned. See all the implications of that conditioning. Divisive, destructive, violent, separative, the whole thing. The boy will learn, they will learn from you. So there is the responsibility of action. That is the responsibility of intelligence which acts wisely. A conditioned mind is ignorant mind. It cannot act wisely. So let's proceed from there. Therefore, my action, not as a parent, as an ordinary human being, is the outcome of understanding my conditioning, my greed, my whole structure. Not intellectual, but deeply. And from that intelligence, from that awakened state, I act. That action doesn't depend on a pattern. Intelligence is not put into a framework. It's the neurotics that live in frameworks. Right, is that clear? Yes. I am passionate about it, you understand? Because I think this is the most utterly, a teacher has the greatest responsibility, because he deals with the new generation. And society despises the teacher, pays him very little. He's looked down upon. Oh, haven't you heard when you say, oh, he's a teacher? He's down there somewhere. But a guru is right on top. The real guru is the teacher who is willing to learn and help others to learn. Oh, for heaven's sake. So, we've answered that question. You're responsible as a human being because you are the world. And the world is you, basically, whether you like it or not. And if you realize that, not verbally, I won't use the word intellectually, that's a stupid thing to say, intellectually I understand. Verbally you understand. So if you feel that to be utterly true, and you feel responsible to that truth, then you will act and not talk everlastingly about responsibility to children and violence and all the rest of it. Now let's go back, let's go on to the next thing, which is meditation and the perception of the whole, which we said transforms the cells themselves, which have been traditional, which have followed tradition. Have you understood the question? Have you understood the question, sirs? One's human brain, I'm not a professional expert, but I've watched it. Human brains function in the field of knowledge, because that's the safest field, right? And that knowledge is tradition. I am a Christian, I am a Buddhist, I am a communist. To become or be and belong to or attach to a group gives the brain security. People who believe the same thing, however idiotic, however stupid, however nonsensical, to belong to that gives to the brain great security. Right? That's the essence of neuroticism. So the brain is accustomed to function in a groove. Traditional, conceptual, superstitious, or believing in something. There the brain is safe. This is so, you can see it in everybody. And is it possible to transform the brain, which functions traditionally, into non-traditional functioning, non-repetitive functioning? Repetitive functioning is mechanical. Right? Belonging to the same thing, I'm repeating the same thing, going to the Mass every morning or every Sunday, repeat rituals. It's mechanical. You might get little stimulation out of it, but it's mechanical. We are asking whether this mechanical brain, which has its own volition, it has its own independence, it has its own inventiveness, not creativeness. We're asking that such a brain is capable of transforming itself. You've understood the question?
You talk about the church.
And that's not what church.
Church pathology, but the problem is not that for me at all. It's your lack of energy always.
General says it's the lack of energy. Why do you lack energy? And don't say no. Why? Wrong food? Oversexed? Habits? Worries? Thinking about something that's dead and won't follow? No, so I'm not analyzing you. You've got plenty of energy when you want something. So, we are saying, please, this is a very serious question. You can't just throw words into it and expect something true to come out. Isn't it a jigsaw puzzle? You've got to pay attention. You've got to find out. You've got to learn about it. Not I'm teaching you. You've got to find out. Through investigation, we are learning. If you have observed your own activities, your attitudes, your desires, your anxieties and so on, are constantly being repeated. Right? There is never an ending to them. There's always something new to be worried about, something new to be get excited about, something new that will give you a new appetite, and so on. The whole process of thinking is mechanical, and that mechanical can be inventive. Obviously. Shall we go on from there? Do we understand? Not just realize, see it, that your own life is utterly mechanical. You get into the habit of smoking, and for the rest of your life you smoke. You drink or whatever you do, keep on repeating. Though the doctors, it's bad for you, yet keep on, because they have become the habit, which is mechanical. Now we are asking, a mind that's mechanical, your mind which is mechanical, can the brain, which is computerized, which is mechanical, following tradition, can that brain change itself? And how is this to be done? Not how. How does this change come about? You've understood? Have we understood? Can we go on? Are you aware that your habits, your attitudes are mechanical? Well, just be aware, conscious, of course, you know him. I won't complicate it. Then, how is that mechanical habit to end, not gradually, take 10 years, end it? You understand? If you smoke, as many of you do, which has become a habit, the nicotine dulls the system, nervous, and so on, you know all about it. Can you end that habit instantly? Huh? Can you? Have you done it? Huh? Attendez. We'll go into it, sir. Please don't take the most difficult thing. I'm taking the most obvious thing first. The body demands the nicotine poisoning. That poisoning that has been going on for years and years and years. And you realize it's mechanical. And can you end it instantly now? Never smoke again. That is intelligence. But to carry on day after day saying it's bad for me, it's good, I'm this and that, and carry on. That is the most stupid, unintelligent way of living. Sorry if I drive something home. So, now move to a different level. Psychologically, the brain has created a center, thought has created a center. Please follow, I've explained all this a dozen times before. The thought has created the center. The center is, it hopes, the unifying factor that brings together the family, the nation, the group, and so on. Now that center functions and reacts mechanically. My country, my God, my Savior, my belief, my ambition. You follow? I like to have more, but I haven't got it. I like to be clever, but I'm not clever. But Joe, how clever you are. And so on. That is the response of a mind that functions in tradition. Tradition being the repetition of what has been and continuing in that field. Of course, this is simple. Now, can psychologically that mechanical traditional attitude and activity stop? And what will make it stop? Now, this is the beginning of meditation. Not sitting cross-legged and breathing and doing all that kind of stuff. Or looking at a candle or a picture or repeating some mantra. You know what? You've done it, haven't you, some of you? Oh, you are so gullible, you people. You can repeat Coca-Cola for the rest of your life. But if you understand the whole significance of sound, then you will put aside all these outward tricks. Sound has tremendous significance. I don't want to go into it now, that's not the point. You know while we are talking about it, you know the mantras that people are giving to you for $35 or $20 or $100. The origin of that is, there was a teacher, a guru, and he had with him several disciples for a number of years. And the teacher studied each disciple very, very carefully for a number of years, watched his characteristics, his tendencies, his appetites, his way of looking at things, his fears, his pleasures. At the end of deep, long study, the teacher said to the pupil, I'll give you the word, don't repeat it to anybody else, it's yours. Right? That's the origin of it. Now you pay $150 and some idiocy comes along. God's sake. So, we are asking whether the brain, which is the repository of tradition, of knowledge, experience, and therefore the past, are you aware? Therefore it's the past. And that functions and operates and moves always in the lines, in the reactions set out. Because that's the safest way of living. It thinks. So we're asking whether that brain can transform itself. You understood my question? Is it clear? Huh? The question, not what comes out of it. And this is the beginning of meditation. Well, meditation implies, if you're at all serious, the total transformation of conduct. The total transformation of the energy which has been dissipated. It is the summation of total comprehension. That's what we're going to. What?
Where are you focusing this energy?
If there is no center, what is the focus of this energy? When you have a center, that energy is limited, isn't it? No? I am focusing my energy on myself, which you are doing most of the time. My quarrels, my appetites, my hopes, my ambitions, my fears, my activities. My energy is self-centered, right? And that self-centered energy is very limited, right? Now we are saying, when there is no center as the me, what happens to that energy? What is there need for focusing it? It is there. No, you don't, you want to play with words. Well, let me go on. So, meditation is a movement, an understanding of the whole structure and the nature of thought. Right? Because unless there is an understanding, totally, I'm using the word understanding, an awareness, an apprehension to hold what is the truth of this reality. Then, unless there is complete uncovering of the total works of thought, what it manufactures, what is false, what is true in thought, the whole of it. Unless that's very clear, meditation then will become a projection of thought which then becomes visions, images. One sees Christ or Krishna, all the circus of visionary people. So, one has to understand very, very deeply the nature and the structure of thought. If you have not understood it, you can't meditate. You can fiddle around with it.
So what do you mean by the structure?
What do you mean by the structure of thought? The tent is the structure of thought. Right? Depending on the stress, strain, the proportions, and the necessity, the structure. The tent is independent of thought. I mean by structure also the movement of thought which imagines, which builds, which foresees, which lays down a structural path to follow. Unless one understands this, the reality of thought and its activity in the world of reality, business, all the rest of it, meditation then becomes merely an escape, or it breeds illusion, false ideas, not false idea, all ideas are false, sorry. And it invites experiences in which you will be held. You will say, I've had marvelous experience. And that holds you for the rest of your life.
Meditation is der thought center.
I'm going to it. So, in meditation, there is no experience. Right? I wonder if you see that. This is very important to understand. Experience implies, the word experience means to go through, not to hold something back, to go through and finish. The meaning of that word. And also in experience, several things are implied. When you have an experience, inevitably you must have the recognizing movement with experience. Right? When you experience something, you must know what it is. No? To know what it is, you've already had it. No? You understand what I'm saying? It is so simple. I met you yesterday, and I recognize you today. That is, there is the memory of meeting you yesterday, and that memory responds and recognizes. In the same way, when I have an experience, if I don't recognize it, there is no experience. Right? When I recognize it, then it is already known.
So what happens when you experience that you see something that you've never seen before?
Wait a minute. You see, you are not following this, you are following your own thoughts, for God's sake. You are not learning. I am not teaching. You are not learning by investigating. You go so far and bring something new. The lady asks, if you see suddenly something new, when you say it is new, right? Finished? When you say it is the new, it's already the old. So you have to understand the whole nature of thought, its nature and structure, and all the things that are involved in experience, which all of you want. New experiences, sexual, otherwise, new experiences. And in that is implied memory, the past, recognition, and attachment to that memory, to that experience. And then you are lost. So, the first movement in meditation is the total awareness of the movement of thought as time and measure. If you have not grasped that deeply, you won't know what meditation is. You may do what you will. Then you can proceed to find out, is it possible for the brain, which is fashioned, shaped, molded by knowledge, experience and memory, whether that molding, that shaping of the brain, that conditioning can be broken. Not slowly, but instantly. You understand the question? Cinque minuti ancora. Sì, sì, sì.
Io osservo che i miei condizionamenti sono indipendenti dal pensiero. Dopo che ho imparato, avvengono senza il pensiero. Così se io capisco il pensiero, però i condizionamenti rimangono.
Sì, ho capito. Clever boy, this understands French and Italian. The question is, I see I'm conditioned, and yet the thought is independent of that conditioning. We've been through that. We said thought has created the conditioning, and the conditioning says I'm independent of thought. Thought has created the tent, and the tent is independent of thought. The mountain is independent of thought, but thought has not created it. Thought has put together our conditioning, the center. The center is the essence of that conditioning. And that center feels it is independent. Therefore, feeling independent, it says, I will control, shape, adjust thought. And the condition goes on. But thought is the conditioning, not the division between conditioning and thought. The observer is the observed and all that. So let's go on. Is this possible, first of all? You understand? Is it possible for a mind that has lived for centuries upon centuries, a brain that has evolved upon centuries of time, for that brain to radically transform itself instantly? You understand the question? So we have to go into the question, is there an observation which is totally different from the usual observation? You understand? Sensory perception, sensory seeing of objective things through belief, through a conclusion, through an image. You understand? That is illusion. I wonder if you see this. I see through my conclusion that communism or socialism or capitalism or Hinduism or Buddhism is limited. Or I become Catholic now instead of all that. So, my brain is attached to something. And can that brain see without illusion? You understand what I'm saying? Look, I'm attached to a particular belief, if I am. And that belief in observing objective things distorts observation. Right? That's fairly simple, isn't it? I believe in God, if I do. And because of that belief, I look at life from a peculiar, distorted point of view, which is the tradition. The politicians talk about God, and generals talk about God, poor Hitler talked about God, everybody. So, illusion it comes about through sensual observation involving belief, which means attachment. Now, the brain is accustomed to that, functions that way, lives that way, right? I've watched it yourself. Now, to see totally the implication of this belief and the illusion, to see it totally, is to break the pattern of the brain. You understood? All right, sir. I'll show something. That is, the brain can only function in security, because then it's efficient. Whether it is neurotic or rational, it is the same. A neurotic belief, all beliefs are neurotic, but a neurotic belief gives to the brain complete security. As a rational belief now, is it possible to see the whole nature of belief, fear, attachment, and holding it? Can you see the whole of that? Not just parts of it, but the totality of that. If you see the totality of it, then it is a shock to the brain. And that shock changes the structure of the cells. Got it? No, do it. Suppose one lives in the neurotic belief of nationalism, that I am a Hindu. And it has lived in that because it's secure. And it functions, operates, moves in that field all the time. You come along and say, look, that way of looking at life distorts action. That action which should be comprehensive whole becomes limited. Therefore breeds conflict. You point out all that to me. I listen to you. I listen. That means I pay attention. That means care, respect to what you say. And because I listen, it is a great shock to the brain. And that very shock of that challenge brings about a totally different movement in the brain. Do it, you will see. That's only part of meditation. It's much more involved in meditation. Perhaps we'll go into it tomorrow.
Does that mean that a child must wait until he can have the ability of this realization?
Does it mean the child must wait till it grows up to see this?
Yes.
It is the responsibility of the parent, the teacher, to see that this takes place in the child. That is education, not the cultivation of memory, everlastingly mechanical memory. That's also part of education. But fundamentally, this is the big.